This business is not sponsored by or affiliated with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs or your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs or any other federally chartered veterans service organization. Other organizations, including but not limited to your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, a local veteran service organization, and other federally chartered veteran service organizations provide this service free of charge. You may qualify for other veterans benefit services outside the scope of what this business offers. All disability claims for increased ratings are processed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This business cannot expedite the processing of your claim by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs.
All right. How's everyone doing today? Happy Wednesday, veterans, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Before we get started with today's topic, just want to real quick apologize for being late here. We had one of our veteran coaches. He had an emergency that he had to run off and take care of. So, but nonetheless, we made it here. Here we are. Alongside of me is Coach Ian. So thank you for tuning in with me, Coach, and the rest of the veterans here. So. But let's go ahead and sound off in the comments. All right. And let us know where you're tuning in from, what branch of service you served in the years that you served. And just, be respectful to one another going through today's live class. All right. So when you're putting comments in the chat box there, you're asking questions, make sure you're appropriate at all times. Coaching and I will get to the question and answer part later on after our brief here, and if we don't answer your question, don't worry. All questions will be answered after the live class. Okay. So with further ado, let's go ahead. Today's topic is going to be on sleep apnea and how to get a successful claim. All right, but let me go ahead and do a brief intro here. So again, I'm Coach Anthony, and I'm a Navy veteran. So I did 22 years in the Navy. I was a hospital corpsman, served in many locations, including Okinawa, Guam, East Coast, West Coast, you name it. Did some time over in the sandbox too in Afghanistan. But when I was coming up on my 22nd year in the service, I thought to myself, my gosh, I'm about to retire. What am I going to do with myself? And I was so used to taking care of service members, junior sailors, senior sailors, you name it, Marines, even had an opportunity to take care of some airmen. I thought, what am I going to do when I get out? So what better career field to fall into than being a veteran coach? I'm telling you, I get to give back, taking care of fellow veterans. I'm a fellow veteran myself, and I love it. I just love my job. So I'm glad to be here with you all. It makes me happy. And with that said, Coach Ian, how you doing today?
Good. Happy to see you in here. And again, happy Wednesday to all of our veterans. Thank you for spending some time with us today. And we're going to get into it as well. Like I said, like Anthony said before, branch served was United States Army, served for 12 years, got medically retired in 2015 after serving for that time, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, spent some time in Germany, and then finally retired here in Texas, just outside of, in Fort Hood. So really wanted to see a process that worked, and saw Brian's videos, saw a lot of how that works, and became a client after becoming an employee first, and got to 100% permanent total, much like a lot of our employees here too, veterans alike. Your elite member forever, right? We're your coach for life, no matter what it is. You got questions in the future, and then during the process too. All right. And like I said before, what really brought me to becoming a veteran coach was giving back, just like what Anthony said too, was serving my fellow vets. I used to call one of our classes that we have, which is Coffee with the Coaches, my motor pool Monday. I wanted that back. I was a motor sergeant for a long period of time and worked in the motor pool. So with that being said, like Anthony said before too, shout out who your coach is. If you got a coach, where you served, when you served, and all that stuff. And again, most of all, thank you for your service to our country and your sacrifice. We do appreciate it very much. But yeah, we'll get things kicked off here real shortly. We're going to go over the strategy, education, medical evidence part of it. We always talk about it as our SEM method. You're going to get that one-on-one coaching if you do become one of the clients here at VA Claims Insider. Working on that strategy session, figuring out that least path of resistance is, really focusing on that. Getting claim education too, like we said before in the interim, as far as the disclaimer, we can't submit the claim for you. Okay, it's not something we do. We educate you on the claim education part of it, and then of course the C&P exam education too. There's a wealth of classes here that we do have here. Anthony, you want to talk about that part, and then we'll get into the actual topic today.
Absolutely, Coachy. And so we do live classes like you all are a part of today, via Zoom. We do up to 3 live classes, all right, per month, and then almost on a daily basis, not quite, but almost. We have coffee with the coaches in the morning time. We also present mental health exam education classes. Gives you a little more information, especially for folks that are getting ready to go into their C&P exam. It's a very, very valuable tool to have access to, and you can go to as many as you like. You can also tune in for the medical exam education class, and that's somewhat similar to the mental health one, just switching it up a little bit, but it gives you some, useful details and knowledge about, what to expect, things to keep in mind going into that C&P exam. We also, at VA Claims Insider, we offer the discovery call, all right? And that's when you want to learn more, right? You want to schedule a discovery call and talk to one of our team members by going to vaclaimsinsider.com. It's pretty easy. Hopefully you can jot that down if you can't remember it. So go.vaclaimsinsider.com. Reach out to our organization, all right, at vaclaimsinsider.com. We'd love to partner with you on your VA claim journey. Okay, so with that said, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier, let's go ahead and kick things off here. Again, we're going to be discussing today sleep apnea and how to get a successful claim with going for sleep apnea. Okay, so in our experience, all right, many veterans, they struggle to prove that their sleep apnea is connected to their military service. All right. Maybe you've gone to sick call and you've complained about it before in the past, but you didn't quite know that what you were experiencing was symptoms of sleep apnea. All right, it's very common. Unfortunately, countless claims are denied due to the lack of a clear nexus. All right, so which is that link between sleep apnea and the active duty service. Okay, so sleep apnea claims are among the most commonly denied when there isn't strong in-service evidence or medical documentation supporting the service connection. All right, so you definitely want to make sure you have that nexus intact. But there's good news. So even if your VA claim for sleep apnea has been denied before, you still have multiple options for an approval. All right. So just want to give you a quick tip here. All right. So the upcoming VA rating changes for sleep apnea, they're going to introduce stricter guidelines. Okay, so please be mindful of that. It hasn't happened yet, but it's coming down the pipeline, and it could significantly reduce disability compensation for many veterans. One of the most notable shifts is the removal of the 50% rating for veterans using a CPAP or similar device. Okay. It'll be replaced with a likely 10% rating for sleep apnea with incomplete relief, even with treatment. Okay. So additionally, the 30% rating category has been eliminated entirely. Veterans, however, may still qualify for a 50% rating if treatment is ineffective or cannot be used due to certain comorbid conditions. And a 100% rating is reserved for cases with end organ damage. Okay. So Coach Ian, if you want to kick off some of the other points, keep in mind too.
Sleep apnea and VA claims denies. Okay, veterans struggle to prove service connection for sleep apnea, and claims are often denied when medical nexus isn't established. That link, that connection between your service. However, denied claims can be pursued through supplemental claims with new and relevant evidence, and appeals through other review options, such as a higher level review. If there is a matter in fact in law, it could be a case as well. Veterans can pursue direct or secondary service connection for sleep apnea. Veterans are typically more successful connecting secondary to already service connected conditions using that nexus letter to link the established connection. So that connection or link is what the word nexus literally means. You need that other part of the closed triangle to meet your in-service event and your current diagnosis within the last 6 and 12 months. The rating sleep apnea, the VA disability ratings for sleep apnea rating change from 0 to 100%, with breaks of 30 and 50% depending on the severity of the symptoms, treatment that is required, such as the CPAP machine or presence of a chronic respiratory failure. Appealing and denying. Okay, veterans can strengthen their case through supplemental claims with new and relevant evidence, like I mentioned before. Stronger nexus disability questionnaires, also known as DBQs, or documented lay statements. They may also require a high-level review. Mentioned that before too, but no new evidence can be added. Okay, so when you talk to the decision review officer, there's no evidence that's being reviewed. It's basis off of the evidence that was previously submitted with the previous claim that was denied. Now as we reviewed setbacks, no dead ends. So you'll get a call from that decision review officer from the Department of Veteran Affairs to be able to voice your case if that's the option you decide to go after. Of course, talk with your coach, or if you're not already with a coach, get on with us and, get that discovery call going and get assigned. You might get assigned to Anthony or myself. Our links are being dropped in here too. So if you want to be assigned to one of us, those are options for you too. Sleep apnea is a serious condition where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during your sleep. This interruption can prevent body from receiving adequate oxygen, leading to poor sleep quality and other health complications. And there's three different types that you can be rated for: obstructive, central, and complex. So obstructive is the most common type of that veterans experience, caused by the throat muscles relaxing and blocking the airway. They call it OSA as an acronym, or obstructive sleep apnea, that require that CPAP. Centralized occurs when the brain doesn't send the right signals to the muscles controlling the breathing. So it's a little different. It's not just a muscular thing. And then complex is a combination of obstructive and central. So again, most common is the OSA. Next would be the central, and then the least common would be the complex. Kick it back over to Anthony to talk about the symptoms of sleep apnea with veterans.
Absolutely. So common symptoms of sleep apnea in veterans, and I kind of alluded to this earlier. While you're in the military, maybe you experience some of these, and maybe they're documented. Okay, but loud snoring. All right, so that's one of the more common ones that we tend to talk about and hear about. Gasping for air or choking during sleep. I can remember countless nights when my wife woke me up and shook me and said, "Hey, you're not breathing." That's a good indication that maybe you should go get a sleep study done. Pauses in breathing during sleep, daytime fatigue and excessive sleepiness. All right, because you keep waking up in the middle of the night because you can't catch your breath, and a lot of times we don't realize it. All right, and so we end up waking up fatigued. We don't feel well rested, even though, hey, it looks like I got about 8 hours of sleep last night. There's that hypersomnolence, right? You may experience headaches, particularly in the morning time. You may get a headache that just kind of follows with you throughout the day. It may lead into some brain fog, all right, especially when waking up, right? So difficulty concentrating or memory issues, which is very common if you aren't getting enough sleep. All right. Irritability or mood swings. Being forgetful is not a fun thing to experience. And someone telling you that you're forgetful is not fun either. So you may experience some increase in your irritableness and and that might lead to some mood swings, okay? So how common, all right, how common is sleep apnea in veterans? So it's very common. Sleep apnea is very common in U.S. military veterans. Veterans are more than twice as likely to be diagnosed with sleep apnea than civilians who didn't serve in the military. That's a significant number there. So it's particularly common in veterans due to factors such as high stress environments during service. How many of us have experienced that in our time in the service, right? Poor sleep conditions during training and deployments. You know, how many hours of sleep did we not get while we were on duty, or maybe we were pulling a second shift? And then, of course, you know, the mission, you know, was going to bring forth all kinds of last second things that we have to tend to, and regardless of how much sleep we had or not. We're also we were exposed to increased exposure to respiratory irritants such as burn pits. All right. That's a big one there, especially for presumptives. Okay. Weight gain or obesity because of other service-connected disabilities or post-service lifestyle changes. Okay, so if you're in a situation now where maybe you have a condition and it's leading to weight gain, that may be something that you want to talk to about your coach. All right. Side effects from medications taken to manage symptoms of current service-connected disabilities. So don't rule out the meds. I know there's a lot of folks in here that don't want to take meds, don't want to come to the realization that they need those medications, but you know, in fact, the best thing for you to do is to not shy away from the prescription. Get the prescription, but also know that what you're taking could also lead to other things that could be service connected as well, based off of the symptoms and the way that those medications are affecting you. Coexisting conditions also like PTSD, GERD, sinusitis, rhinitis, asthma, or deviated septum are among others. Okay, so you know, hopefully you're seeing a trend here. Usually it's an upper respiratory condition that is the strongest suit when it comes to connecting sleep apnea outside of active duty service. But don't rule out PTSD or GERD either. All right. Now, I'm not saying that everyone would have a strong case, because that's why you have a coach and you want to talk to your coach about it. But you could have some things going on that would strengthen your case for PTSD connection or a GERD connection. But the most common ones that we see are tied to upper respiratory conditions. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into VA disability ratings for sleep apnea from 0% to 100%. So the VA rates sleep apnea from 0 to 100%. All right, with breaks at 30% and 50%, like we were Coach Ian had mentioned earlier. And you can find these details under the diagnostic code 6847 in the 38 Code of Federal Regulations 4.97 Schedule of Ratings for the Respiratory System. All right, you can Google that. And if you can't figure out how to get connected with it through Google, definitely, you know, if you're signed up for your coach, reach out to your coach and ask your coach about it. The rating criteria are based on the severity of the condition and the treatment required. Okay. Coach Ian, you want to go ahead and kind of break down what 100% is?
Yeah, thanks so much. 100% criteria: chronic respiratory failure with carbon dioxide retention, pulmonary or right heart failure, or the need for tracheotomy or tracheostomy. Explanation is this is for veterans with the most severe form of sleep apnea. If your condition leads to respiratory failure, heart issues, or requires a tracheostomy, you'll qualify for the highest rating for that 100%. 50% for VA disability rating for sleep apnea. Currently, criteria requires the use of a continuous positive airway pressure, also known as CPAP machine. Most veterans will sleep with or who require a CPAP machine fall into this category. If you've been prescribed a CPAP to help manage your sleep apnea, you would likely qualify for that 50% rating. Anthony mentioned this earlier, that 30% criteria for rating for sleep apnea, typically rated for the persistent daytime sleepiness, also known as hypersomnolence. And it's excessive daytime sleepiness. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're getting a little tired. Coffee's not doing it for you. That's pretty much what they're looking at. Experience it myself on a regular basis because I do have a CPAP and all that stuff. And fortunately, I got it rated while still in service too. So I'm kind of the 1% of the people that actually get, it's an underrated condition, and it's highly disapproved most of the time too. But not impossible, like we mentioned earlier. This rating is for veterans whose sleep apnea causes significant daytime sleepiness, but who don't require the CPAP machine. Okay, the sleep apnea disrupts your sleep into the point where it impacts your daily life. You may qualify for that 30% mentioned. Okay, so here's the one. It still service connected. So let's really be clear about 0%. You are still service connected. You're just non-constable at the 0%. So the criteria is asymptomatic for what it is, but will be documented with a sleep disorder with breathing. This rating is for veterans who are documented sleep apnea, but not experiencing the symptoms severe enough to affect the daily life or require a CPAP machine. The 0% rating means your condition is recognized as service connected, but is not warranted for compensation. Like I said before, non-compensable. And then how we can get service connected. I'm going to go over a few of these, and I'm going to kick it over to Anthony for a few of them as well. There's generally 2 ways to get service connected for sleep apnea: direct or secondary service. We're going to kind of highlight the secondary service. That's going to be more common. The direct is where, like I mentioned before, I was direct service connected basis off of my time in service because I documented it. I got diagnosed in service, all those things. That's why I was directly caused. Okay, so to improve direct service for sleep apnea, you'll need evidence. Okay, you need evidence to get support claims. You need something to support it from your service treatment records, also known as STRs. Some service record briefs. That's what other branches call it too. Showing symptoms or diagnosis of sleep apnea during your active duty. So you'd have to be diagnosed while in service. The medical diagnosis of sleep apnea must be confirmed by a sleep study while on active duty. So you'd have to be on active duty, had a sleep study performed, and they diagnosed you with obstructive sleep apnea, centralized or mixed. Okay, one of those 3. And again, like I said before, unfortunately, most veterans don't have this type of evidence, which makes it difficult for the direct service connection. It can be very difficult to prove. And I'm going to kick it over, like I said before, to Anthony and talk about the secondary, which is the most common.
Yes, absolutely. So for the secondary service connection, the best path for most veterans to win the claim, you must show that your sleep apnea is proximately due to, caused or aggravated by a condition that's already service connected. All right. And just like I had mentioned before when we were going over those symptoms, right? The first one is that I have here is PTSD. Okay, so chronic stress and hyperarousal disrupts sleep patterns, okay, which then can worsen sleep apnea. Now, keep in mind that term nexus, right? We were talking about that nexus link earlier. Hopefully you can obtain a nexus that discusses that, okay, that discusses that connection to the PTSD, all right? The next one is GERD. So acid reflux can absolutely obstruct airways and exacerbate certain episodes, okay? So just keep that in mind too, but it's not every GERD rating. So that's why you need to have this discussion with your coach and make sure that it's the right path for you. So I say that with emphasis on PTSD and GERD because those are very common conditions that I hear vets trying to connect sleep apnea to. And they're not wrong in their approach. It's just, with the evidence that you have at hand, is that the best case for you? Might not be. Oh, maybe it is. Okay. But the stronger suit is going to usually be, like I had mentioned, like your upper respiratory conditions. All right. Because obviously, if you have these conditions, it's going to produce some sort of effect in your esophagus and do some sort of blocking of the airway. So, and we'll get into it here with sinusitis or allergic rhinitis. All right. So that's when nasal airway blockages can lead to obstructive sleep apnea. So if you're in the middle of the night and you've got post-nasal drip going down your throat, that's obviously going to impact the way you breathe. All right. And for some of you, you may experience, times where it's actually choked you and you woke up. So those are very common ones that that service members will connect secondarily to. And a lot of times too, you have to establish the sinusitis and the rhinitis first. And depending on what your deployment history looks like, you may warrant a presumptive condition for those. So definitely, if that is something that's up your alleyway and you've got a coach already assigned to you, talk to your coach about that. The next one is weight gain or obesity. Okay, so it's often linked to service-connected joint back pain, joint pain, back pain, and or mental health conditions. Okay, another thing to keep in mind, the common thing, like I said, is folks come to me about mental health. Hey, I got a mental health diagnosis and I'm service connected for it now. I think I want to go ahead and pull the trigger on sleep apnea. Okay. Let's look at some factors that are wrapped up in the mental health diagnosis. Is weight gain or obesity one of them? If so, then you may be on the right track. You might be on the right path. Okay. I'm not saying hands down 100%, if that is you and that's what you should do. I'm just saying you may be heading in the right direction. So seek further information on that. Get with your coach. Okay. To win a secondary VA claim for sleep apnea, all right, you're going to need, like we talked about earlier, medical diagnosis. You need a medical diagnosis for sleep apnea. Symptoms alone are not enough to just indicate a diagnosis. You need to have a diagnosis, a hardcore, hardline diagnosis indicated in your evidence. You must have sleep apnea diagnosed and confirmed by a sleep study. All right, and that could be at home as well. So if you get an at-home test, go ahead. If go through with it if that's what's recommended to you, and get it done. Okay, because if it comes back and it's positive for sleep apnea, you now have yourself a case. All right, but it's helpful to have a current diagnosis and make sure, and especially for you folks that have gone through new client orientation, that current evidence, it has to be current, right? So current evidence is anything within in the past 12 months. So make sure that you've got that current diagnosis and it was in the past 12 months. That's very helpful. The next thing is the nexus letter for the sleep apnea. So you got your diagnosis now. Maybe you've got service connection for, let's just say, sinusitis. Now you need to tie the two together. All right, and you need to be done nicely. Right. So this is a medical opinion from a qualified private doctor explaining how your current service-connected condition caused or is aggravated or has aggravated your sleep apnea. Okay. This is the number one best way to win a secondary claim for sleep apnea. So keep that in mind. If you have the sinusitis or if you have an upper respiratory condition, you can definitely look into getting that nexus established. Absolutely talk to your coach if you got a veteran coach assigned to you already. Okay. All right, Coach Ian. You know what? Let me go ahead and continue here real quick. I'm sorry. So sleep apnea secondary VA claims. All right. So we've got the top 10 VA secondary conditions commonly linked to sleep apnea. I'll hit a couple of them here. Let's see here. So first one's anxiety. All right, mental health. You've got quite a few mental health ones here as well. All right, so you got anxiety, you got sleep apnea secondary to depression, PTSD. Okay, and then we start getting into the upper airway. All right, so we start looking at things like what could impact, your breathing, right? Especially when you're sleeping at night. So deviated septum, for those folks out there that have deviated septums, you got a pretty good case potentially. All right, and it doesn't matter how that deviated septum came on. You could have broken your nose during service, but if you've got a deviated septum, you might have something there. Of course, we talked about rhinitis, secondary to rhinitis and secondary to sinusitis, but also the GERD, the PTSD, weight gain, and obesity as well. Okay, so just keep those in mind. Hopefully you're jotting down notes as we're going over this information. And then you can talk about these later then with your coach as well. So, all right, Coach Ian, let's go over some expert tips and strategies to win your sleep apnea claim.
For sure. You mentioned a couple of the ones too. You know, we talked about GERD and all those other ones as well too. But weight gain, I want to kind of reiterate that one too. Make sure when you go through that one that and it does need to be documented in your symptom in your records that you have a BMI of 30 or better. If it's not 30 or better, the case is very hard to win without it. With that intermediate step of weight gain too, as that intermittent link. But yeah, getting a medical diagnosis via sleep study. You mentioned that earlier before. Okay. So the first step is to get an official diagnosis by a medical professional, okay, of sleep apnea through that sleep study. So the VA will send you to that location. It might be outside sourced, all those things. Some VAs do have sleep clinics built into their VA hospitals too. So without a sleep study, the VA will not consider your condition as medically diagnosed. You need that diagnosis with that sleep study. Consider secondary service connection for sleep apnea as well. So if you weren't diagnosed with sleep apnea during military service, focus on connecting your sleep apnea to an already service connected condition. You know, mentioned before, GERD, sinusitis, rhinitis, asthma, mental health, weight gain, all those things. Most veterans are better off pursuing secondary conditions for sleep apnea in that sense too. Get a disability benefits questionnaire for sleep apnea. Okay, that DBQ, complete by a private health care provider, can help document your diagnosis and know the severity of symptoms. Okay, combine the DBQ with your nexus letter when submitting your claim to strengthen your case and make a decision ready for a VA process. DBQs can warrant for a no CMP exam in some cases too. So just keep those things in mind. That extra documentation, that extra evidence just kind of strengthens that case. Okay, by DBQ nexus combination, the sleep apnea is possible to get a sleep apnea approved without a CP exam. Okay, like I said before. Get a nexus letter for sleep apnea as a secondary condition. This was kind of an iteration of the previous things. To prove a secondary service-connected condition for sleep apnea, you need a medical nexus. You need something to link it to your service, to link it to that secondary, or link it as a secondary condition to that primary condition, rhinitis, sinusitis, whatever it happens to be. Connected sleep apnea to an already served connected condition can be rated as 0 or higher. Okay, so it could be a 0% even too, that non-compensable. The best way to do this is to get a stronger nexus letter for the sleep apnea as a secondary condition from a private healthcare provider. Gonna do one more. I'm gonna kick it over to Anthony. Document the severity of your symptoms. Okay. If you require a CPAP machine, you may qualify for the 50% rating. If you experience a chronic respiratory failure, carbon monoxide retention, or pulmonary as required for tracheotomy, you may qualify for the 100%, like I mentioned before. Document your sleep apnea symptoms by writing a personal statement in support of your claim and support it with your claim as that space. All right, I'm going to kick it back over to Anthony for the rest of these, and then we'll get into the Q&A.
Absolutely. And so going down the line or going down the list here, so you may want to use some lay evidence too, also to fill in gaps in your medical records. Okay, so what is lay evidence? All right, it's basically statements from your spouse, who has to wake you up in the middle of the night and tell you to breathe. All right, your family, your friends, or even fellow service members that were with you. I mean, I've had many service member experiences where I was in on the ship, and we're down in the berthing, and I remember there's many nights where I couldn't get to sleep because I just had fellow service members that were just snoring like crazy. And and if they ever came to me and said, "Hey man, can you write a letter for me?" I'd be absolutely. So they can also provide that evidence too, and provide help for you to document that you in fact did experience sleep apnea symptoms during or even after service. This is especially helpful if there are gaps in your medical records that need to be filled in. Do you have to do this all the time? Maybe not. Okay, so talk to your coach about it if you got a coach already assigned to you, and figure out if this is the right course of action for your game plan. All right, is this what you guys are going to partake in to make your claim stronger? But that lay evidence, like I said earlier, it's basically anyone who can account when they notice that you were snoring, choking in your sleep, and being able to provide that statement to strengthen your claim. Okay. So, what if your sleep apnea claim is denied? And I hope what you don't do is tear up your denial letter and throw it away or lock it away somewhere. Number one thing you shouldn't do is lose hope. All right. So as long as you push forward with the claim process, you should win eventually. Okay. But don't lose hope. If your sleep apnea claim is initially denied, this is a common outcome for many veterans filing sleep apnea claims. So just keep that in mind. You're not alone in this process. And be mindful too of the side chatter from folks that are trying to tell you, well, it only took me a couple of days to get my decision, right? It's case by case basis, and there's a ton of factors that are involved and go into play with every time someone submits a claim. Period. So just because it took this person a couple of days doesn't mean it's going to take you a couple of days. So just be patient, and even if they got approved but you didn't, don't worry. Just keep pushing forward. Don't focus on other people's cases. Focus on your case. All right. The good news is that a denial doesn't mean that it's the end of the road, right? So we've seen many denied sleep apnea claims overturned with a higher level review, all right, or a supplemental claim. So the appeals process can be very successful, and it is majority of the time, all right. So here's how to improve your claim and increase your chances of success. So after a sleep apnea claim is denied from the VA, all right, number one, think about requesting a higher level review for sleep apnea. All right, so if your claim is denied despite having a strong nexus letter, you should, hands down, request a higher level review. All right, if you got a nexus letter, everything's current, everything looks great, go for that higher level review. Because during the higher level review process, a senior VA rater will re-examine your claim for any errors or overlooked evidence. Okay, so this approach can be especially effective if you believe your claim was unfairly denied. So please take advantage of that opportunity. If you never noticed it, it is on your letters. You should see an option on there for a lot of you that there is. You may have an option to file a higher level review, okay, or a supplemental with new evidence. Number two, file a supplemental claim for sleep apnea with new evidence and relevant evidence not previously considered. All right, so if you didn't include a nexus letter, and you know that with your initial sleep apnea claim, well, guess what? Now's the time to get one. All right, so if you know that, I don't have a nexus, there's nothing tying this, it's just I got sleep apnea and I was just trying to throw it against the wall to see if it sticks. All right, well, you know what? Save yourself some time, get yourself a nexus letter, and then follow through with a supplemental claim. All right. A nexus letter from a qualified medical professional can provide that critical link, like we had mentioned before, between your sleep apnea and your military service or a service-connected condition. Okay. And then, of course, when you get that nexus, you want to submit that new evidence with a supplemental claim to give the VA new and relevant evidence to consider. Because remember, that's what they're looking for at the VA when you submit a supplemental claim, new and relevant evidence. All right, number three, consider obtaining a second nexus letter for sleep apnea. So if your initial nexus letter didn't lead to approval, consider getting a second opinion from another private physician. So don't stop. It's like I said, keep moving forward. Don't look behind. Don't focus on other people's results. A more detailed or better supported nexus letter can address gaps or weaknesses that the VA cited in its denial letter. Believe it or not, the VA makes mistakes in their denial letters, all right? Which is another reason why you want to have a coach there to read through your denial letters to help pinpoint, to see if we can pinpoint some of those errors, all right? Because once you pull out an error, you can take that error to that higher level review, all right? And possibly be very successful. They can help you combat a bad CMP exam as well. All right. So with a negative medical opinion for service connection of sleep apnea, because sometimes the CMP exams don't necessarily go the way that we wished it or hoped that they would have. Thus, a second nexus letter can help tips, or a nexus letter can help tip the scale, all right, in favor, leading in your favor, leading to a sleep apnea claim approval. So please keep that in mind. Another thing too to keep in mind is consider submitting a sleep apnea disability benefits questionnaire form, like coaching had mentioned before. Those are very, very important pieces of document, and they're very helpful to, in strengthening your claim. So a completed DBQ for sleep apnea, filled out by a private healthcare provider, can help document the diagnosis and severity of your symptoms and strengthen your claim. So when you get a nexus letter, it's going to talk about the connection to service. Okay. So what helps that nexus letter beef up a little bit further, a little bit more, I should say, is that DBQ, because now you got something that specifically highlights the severity of the condition. So combine the DBQ with your nexus letter to create a stronger case when you're going in for that supplemental claim. Again, this is considered new and relevant evidence that the VA rater must consider. All right. And then the last one here, don't ever give up. All right. Like we have mentioned numerous times throughout this discussion today, don't ever give up. A VA claim denial is just a setback. And a lot of times, too, a VA claim denial is the next step in the process. All right. When you go through your letter, it may tell you what you need to do next. And that one thing or two things, however many it may be, those things may be the contributing factors to your win. All right. Remember, a denial doesn't mean your sleep apnea claim is unwinnable. It simply means more evidence or clarification is needed. So use this as an opportunity to build a more compelling case and submit additional medical evidence to support your claim. And don't ever quit fighting for what you rightfully deserve. All right. So with that said, Coach Ian, I think we are now ready for the Q&A session.
Yes, we are. Wayne Kern had a good question. It's a common one I hear a lot too. He's 100% P&T with an SMCS, hearing loss 100%, also have mental health at 70, heart at 60, OSA at 50, headaches for 30, sinusitis at 10, and tinnitus for 10. Do these combined for secondary or not? Combined give me a higher SMC, or so do I? How do I apply? So for SMCs, you don't apply for those. The VA assigns a special monthly compensation for that specific SMC code, whichever you apply for. Any additional is going to be applied for basis off of a lot of different other things too. So if you're not with a coach, or if you're not, check out some of our blogs. There's some great information about SMCs themselves. You can virtually just type in anything you want in there, and there's a lot of information that talks about that. But SMCs, traditionally, you're not applying for them. The VA assigns them basis off of that. And just so you know, Wayne, too, just make sure you know that if you do apply for additional disability of any kind, the VA has the ability and right to evaluate you for all your conditions, even though you are a P&T. So as I tell all my vets, don't poke the bear. And any additional SMCs would have been assigned during the time that you got your rating before, typically. So I hope that answers the question.
Awesome. And Patrick, Patrick mentioned here, Patrick Drake, would burn pits contribute to sleep apnea? Technically, they could, right? And I had mentioned earlier about presumptive conditions. Okay, so that's something you want to look into as well. Okay, what's on that presumptive condition list for burn pit exposure? Guarantee you're going to see rhinitis in there, and I guarantee you're going to see sinusitis. So if you're able to get either one of those, or and a lot of times I see both of them established, service connected, now you have a possible pathway to connect that sleep apnea. So great question, but it absolutely could lead to it. It's just you might have to go down another avenue first, right, until you get to the ultimate your ultimate destination there. So good job.
For sure.
And Mark Pidcock asked, can tinnitus be connected to apnea? It's not, as far as we know, in the medical world, we don't see a connection right now at this moment in time directly. Right now, that's not to say that tinnitus can't connect to something else that could potentially connect and link to sleep apnea. So that's definitely a good question for you and your coach. If you have a coach assigned to you to go ahead and talk and chat about. That is a good question, though. It's just, like I said, not directly. There is not a direct link at this time.
Yeah, John, good question, and we hear it a lot too. Air Force vet, Air Force firefighter, EFFF exposed. How do I file a successful claim? Going back to the Caloza triangle, right? You need that in-service event. Okay, so maybe that exposure is your in-service event. Diagnosis for a condition that you're exposed, the condition that was caused from that exposure. And diagnose from that licensed medical professional, and you're going to need a nexus. AFFF is not a current presumptive as of right now, but a nexus can prove connection in that sense too. So really, if you're not already with a coach, or if you are with a coach, get with your coach and talk about that in more further detail. We've seen some really good success with veterans getting nexus letters for things like AFFF. And thanks for the question. And the other question was, what's the max rating for sleep apnea? It was mentioned earlier in the conversation. If you're a late comer, it's 100%. You actually can get a 100% rating, but it's for organ respiratory failure.
Awesome. And then Thomas Glenn Strickland, he say just logged on. He says he's been diagnosed post-service. He says, I have also been diagnosed with PTSD. So who can make the diagnosis / determination of this being secondary or not to PTSD? Thomas, that goes hand in hand with the nexus. That's what we were talking about with the nexus. You may have heard it. You may have caught the tail end of it, maybe. But you want to have that nexus established. You want to have that link established, to tie the sleep apnea to the PTSD. All right. And a licensed physician is the only person that you're going to be able to go to that's going to provide a valid, nexus letter, one that you'll be able to use, and it'll actually be credited by the VA. Right. So that's what you need to do. You need to go to a medical provider, whether it's your PCM, whomever, and talk to them about your condition, and know what that PTSD as well, know what that PTSD condition entails, right? Look at the different details of the PTSD, of your PTSD condition, what you experience, and the impacts that it has had on you that could possibly lead to an upper respiratory condition or a lung condition like sleep apnea, right? So more so the lung condition. So just look into how that could potentially tie into PTSD. But of course, you're going to have to go to a medical physician, licensed, credentialed, to draft up that nexus letter. And sometimes too, providers, they'll put a nexus letter in an encounter and without even intending to do a nexus letter. All right. So if your story is straight when you go into that encounter, and you give your version, your condition, you know how it's impacting you. And I'll be honest with you, if you have a veteran coach, that veteran coach will be able to talk to you about it, and you'll be spot on, okay, with your story. Then that provider can take your story and put it in black and white. All right. And I've seen it numerous times where when that happens, the result is, holy cow, there's a nexus in there. So just, give that a shot, reach out. If you got a coach, reach out to your coach, talk to them. And then also schedule that appointment with your provider. Get that current evidence. At the very least, get the current evidence. Good question.
Running short of time, we're going to get to about one more question. If we don't get to all your questions, don't be afraid that, don't worry. The questions will be answered in another form, another space. So just keep that in mind, or ask your coach too. So just wanted to bring up some contributing factors. Thomas Dickinson mentioned, can you file for secondary sleep apnea into both rhinitis and PTSD separately to increase chances of winning your case? So no, they're not going to be rated and not be submitted separately. Those would be the multiple contributing factors that I just mentioned before. So having multiple contributing factors such as PTSD, rhinitis, sinusitis, GERD, those are all contributing factors, like we mentioned, secondaries, and having multiple contributing factors in a case can strengthen that case. So hope that answers your question, Thomas, and the best of luck on your case and on your claims to win. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming out and stopping and giving us some of your time and some kind of closing arguments and thoughts about this recap of the talk about the service connection, the secondaries, talking about the direct service, talking about the different rating schedules for sleep apnea. And then Anthony also mentioned the upcoming changes that could happen here in the near future. Really building that strategy, education, medical evidence with your coach. Talk about the SEM method is really important. It's what we live and breathe by. Having that one-on-one coaching, if you're not already assigned to us, get on that discovery call, or just get on with one of the coaches here at VA Claims Insider. Having that claim education, having the CMP exam education. We have a wealth of classes throughout the entire time, produced in live on Zoom, 3 live classes, coffee with the coaches, mental health exam education, and medical exam education. Coffee coaches Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Mental health exam education is on Thursdays and Tuesdays. And Monday and Thursday, and medical exam education is Monday and Tuesday. So check out Brian's new book, VA Claims Secrets, is now available, and you can order yours on Amazon. And again, if you want to learn more, schedule a discovery call, talk to one of the team members by going to vaclaimsinsider.com. Reach out to the organization, to vaclaimsinsider.com. We'd love to partner with you with your VA claim journey. Anthony, pleasure to doing a class with you as always. And everyone, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you all. Take care.